First time, and I held my firstborn. Whoa, I cried. It was the joyful day of my life. I was happy, and I couldn't believe it. It was a miracle. When she came, it was such a blessing because she was alive.
Oh, God. It's one of the things you can't really explain. So much is going on in your mind. You're excited, you have a child and all of that. And when you hold this baby in your arms for the very first time, you're like, thank you, Lord, for the safe delivery and everything. But at the back of your head, you always keep on thinking, oh Lord, what if this child is actually HIV positive? What if I've actually passed this virus on to this child? But then, even that, it is at the back of your mind. It will never take away the kind of joy that you have as a mother when you hold your baby in your arms for the very first time.
We all want the best for our children. We want to protect them no matter the cost. But what about mothers with HIV? How do they protect their babies from becoming infected by this virus?
The thing that was very scary for me is that what will happen when I give birth, you see? Because they said when you're delivering, if the baby gets a cut, then there's a possibility that she might be infected.
Nosimiselo Peter and Dutum Xalisa live in Grahamstown, in the Eastern Cape, one of the poorer regions of South Africa. About 10 years ago, both women were diagnosed as HIV positive. Since then, they have both had children. Ndutu has a 5-year-old daughter and Nosi 2 daughters, a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old.
My daughter, wow. She's a fun-loving person. She has a good personality. I want to believe that she's taking that from me. And she's very assertive at the same time, which is basically how you describe me. But she's unique in her own way. But yeah, basically, that's her in a nutshell.
The first one, she's a very hyper. She's a very hyper person. She likes playing. That's the thing I like most about her. A very cheerful child. And then with the second one, she doesn't sleep that well. And then at night, that's where we find our time, you see. When the eldest one is asleep, you see. That's when we get that mother and daughter bond, because then she's awake and then we play and then she'll make these funny sounds. Sometimes I'll laugh.
When Nosi and Dudu were first diagnosed in the early 2000s, a program called the Prevention of Mother-to-Child Transmission was being tested in South Africa. This meant that HIV-positive mothers had access to services which helped them to give birth to HIV-negative babies. It allowed their children a real chance at a healthy life. By the time that Ndutu and Nosi fell pregnant, the PMTCT program was readily available in the Eastern Cape.
When I decided to have a child, I was already in my late 20s. My daughter is 5 years old now. I was 29 when I actually fell pregnant. I was not on ARVs, but I was fortunate enough to be in the group when dual therapy was still being piloted in the Eastern Cape. So I was one of the fortunate people that went into the PMTCT program with the dual therapy. And as they say, the rest is history, because my daughter, she tested negative 4 times already.
I went to the clinic, Reg Clinic, and then I got tested there, and they confirmed that I was pregnant. So they told me that I had to go for antenatal appointments. So I went there. And then in August, they told me, okay, I must start ARVs, because they were concerned about the baby. Not because my CD4 count was low or anything else, but their fear was that after I gave birth, then I would be sick.
With PMTCT, the pregnant women actually that are tested positive, they are given dual therapy.
Andiswa Dambuza is the head nurse at NG Ndlugulu Clinic in Grahamstown. She has been working closely with the women who are part of the PMTCT program. These women are given different types of medication which helps to prevent their babies from becoming infected.
They are given AZT and nevirapine. But AZT usually it's supposed to start from 14 weeks of pregnancy in order for it to be more effective. And then you continue until the mother gives birth, and then they are given in nevirapine 1 tablet, of which they take it when they are in labor. Otherwise, they don't continue with the AZT and the nevirapine. It was only for that period while the woman was pregnant.
The HIV-exposed babies are then immediately put on nevirapine after birth to help prevent them from getting HIV.
Usually, the babies are given nevirapine syrup for about 6 weeks. When they come to the clinic for their first immunizations, they are tested. It's called PCR. It's a polymerase chain reaction test that is done to detect if the baby is not HIV infected. Then also you start the baby on Bactrim to prevent all the opportunistic infections. Now that is for the baby. Then for the mother, at 6 weeks after the baby is born, you take blood for CD4 cell count to check if it has increased or reduced. But if it's down, then you prepare the mother for ARVs.
Over the past 3 years in particular, PMTCT services have been very successful and have protected babies from HIV.
It's not common for them to be infected, especially if the mother sticks to what she was told or advised to do. But from us, I promise you, there are very few babies with positive PCRs. Most cases, it is due to negligence.
But despite the success of PMTCT, the risk of infection remains high. Mothers must still take strict precautions to protect their children, both from HIV and other sicknesses. Even before they give birth, women on the PMTCT program need to carefully consider these precautions. They are asked in particular to make decisions about the approach they will adopt to feeding their baby.
Before I even conceived, I knew that I was not going to breastfeed because for me, the risk was too high. Ne? That is why I chose to formula feed, because with formula feeding, even though I was a working mother already at the time, I always made it a point that when I come back from work, I always sterilize my baby's bottles so that they can be as safe as possible. And my mother, for some reason, even though she is illiterate in everything, she's very clued up when it comes to HIV and surrounding things. And my sister was there as well as a support system for her. So formula feeding for me was the best option.
Until recently, experts thought formula feeding was the best choice for mothers with HIV. They believed that if a child was placed strictly on formula, that there was no chance of the baby getting infected. In practice, however, formula feeding is not a fail-safe. In poorer communities, such as those in the Eastern Cape, formula milk is often mixed with unclean water. This leads to other sicknesses such as diarrhea and pneumonia.
When I was first pregnant, it was discussed that, okay, we must breastfeed our children to prevent them from getting any sicknesses, because sometimes if you bottle feed the baby, the water sometimes is dirty, so it affects the baby's tummy. So they said that breastfeeding is the best, so I decided to do it, to breastfeed my children.
Recent studies claim that exclusively breastfeeding your child while giving them nevirapine syrup only leaves a 2% chance of infection. This is on condition that the mother gives her child nothing other than breast milk for 6 months, not even water. It's extremely difficult to do, but it makes the risk of infection minimal.
Obviously, there is a risk of transmission. Of course, we can't eradicate the risk of there being HIV in the breast milk, but that risk is extremely low.
Elizabeth Briley is a member of the organisation Milk Matters based in Cape Town. They encourage HIV-positive mothers to breastfeed their children.
The ideal situation is antenatally they are given education and they are told what their options are. So they can formula feed if they have access to all the right facilities, but then they're also given the option of the fact that they actually can successfully breastfeed and the risk of transmission is extremely low. And I think that's the really crucial thing, is that they're given all the right information and then they make the decision at the end of the day as to how they want to feed their baby. Obviously, we know for all babies, regardless of mother's HIV status, breastfeeding is best. It's got everything that the baby needs up until the baby's 6 months, and then ideally till the baby's 2 years of age. And the other thing is that they have done research and they've proven that actually the single most cost-effective way and the public health intervention to reduce infant mortality is to increase our breastfeeding rates.
However, just like formula feeding, breastfeeding is also not a fail-safe. There are many different factors that can increase the risk of transmission through breastfeeding.
If the mother isn't taking her antiretroviral treatment, or she gets an infection, or she doesn't have correct breastfeeding management, then the risk of transmission can actually increase.
They told us, okay, each and every time when you breastfeed, you must check that you don't have any scars or anything, you see, so that you won't infect the baby. So I did breastfeed for a week. Then I got cuts on my nipples, so I went to the clinic. And then the doctor just said to me, okay, we are going to transfer you and you are no longer going to breastfeed. You are going to take a formula.
In South Africa, formula milk has been given out freely to underprivileged mothers with HIV. However, from April 1st of 2012, the South African Health Department stopped providing free formula in order to encourage mothers to breastfeed.
I understand where the government is coming from, in terms of banning the formula milk, because it costs a lot. And not every mother that gets that milk actually has the best interest of the child at heart. Because you will find out that they go to the clinic, they get 4 cans of milk for a week, but by the time they get to Wednesday or Thursday, the milk is not there. They've decided to send it because they are poverty-stricken. I mean, for me, as Untutu, of course, the government has taken everything into consideration before they say they are banning the formula milk from being used for PMTCT and all of that.
I think it's a really optimistic move, and I'm really happy that the government has decided to support breastfeeding, because that's the only way that they could have done it, is by stopping this free formula and making there be a one feeding option, and that be exclusive breastfeeding. I think the biggest thing for me and in my experience is that stopping the free formula is brilliant, but the support in the communities has to be scaled up. So the community clinics, the MOUs, even the hospitals, I think, need to improve their breastfeeding support. So having peer counsellors, lay counsellors, promoting support groups for mothers who are breastfeeding, so there be a mother-on-mother support groups. Yeah, but I think it's a really, really good move, and it's going to make a huge difference to our infant mortality rate in the long run.
However, the decisions that mothers make about whether or not to breastfeed is based on more than facts. She needs at the same time to consider her own emotional responses to the feeding of her child.
I wanted to do breastfeed because, when you are a woman, you grow up knowing that, okay, you want to breastfeed your child. You want to get that bond between you and the child. So that's the experience I didn't want to miss out. Each and every time when you breastfeed your child, you look through her eyes and then you see her. You see, it's very special, and then you connect with your child in a very special way. Sometimes you don't know how to express it, but you see, when you're looking at her, and then you think to yourself, wow, did I do this? So being HIV took that away from me in an earliest stage, you see, because I had to breastfeed until 2 months, and then that's it.
The very same technique that you use when you are breastfeeding, you are actually able to apply that when it comes to formula feeding. Because in order for you to be able to bond with your child, there needs to be eye contact. If you manage to maintain that while you are bottle feeding, then the child gets used to seeing your eyes. And also, you carried this person for 9 months within your womb. There is nobody else that this person knows other than you. So, as much as people say breastfeeding is best when it comes to bonding with your child, of course it is, but you can also maintain the same type of bond even if you are formula feeding.
I have bonded with them, and even now I try my best to bond with them the best way I know how, you see. Because, yeah, you can breastfeed your child and not bond with your child. You see, you just breastfeed because you want to do it and then get it over with. But sometimes playing with them, doing things with them, bathing them, you see, taking them to town, it's the best thing that I do. I do those things to bond with my children.
Once HIV-infected mothers on PMTCT have made the choice between formula feeding and breastfeeding, they still face many challenges in their struggle to protect their children from infection. A key problem is that many women have to return to work after the birth of their babies. This means that they are not able to look after their babies alone and are often dependent on the help of family members. Therefore, it is not only the mothers who decide how a baby will be fed.
With my grandmother, it was tough because when the baby is born, the traditional medicines that they must take, and I told her, you know what, please don't make me do this, because at the clinic they told me not to give the baby anything until she got the test, all the 3 tested, you see. And then at first she didn't understand, but I had to each and every time keep on reminding her, you know what, we mustn't do this because it's not safe for the baby. And then that's when she started, getting to know, now there are certain things that we mustn't do.
You need to take into consideration when you're talking about breastfeeding and you are HIV positive, you need to breastfeed exclusively. You do not give anything else, only the breast milk. If your child is sick, you can't even give her a teaspoon of Panado syrup unless a doctor actually prescribes something for you. Now, we are working mothers. At the same time, what happens if the milk that I've expressed runs out? My baby takes all the milk, and then my mother is left with my child. The baby is crying. He's hungry. She's hungry. What is my mother going to do? She will take whatever she can find in the house to give to my baby so that he or she can keep quiet. These are the things that you need to take into consideration.
I remember after I gave birth, there was a stock ticket, Pick and Pay, and I had to go because I needed the money. Before I went, I told them, you know what, I'm just going to pour milk from my own milk and suppress it to the jug. And then you must just warm up this milk and give the baby. And then I went to work. And then I came back. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And then my mother was awake. And I asked her, and then, how was it? She said, the baby was not, she was crying because she used to drink a lot that time. And the milk, it was not enough for her, you see. It's the main issue when you are breastfeeding and you have to go to work. It's easier if you stop breastfeeding and then the baby can take a formula, because don't worry about, I must rush home. Then you know that, she's going to get the formula and then she'll drink, you see.
My mother always told me that, when you were growing up, we used to give you gripe water for colic and everything. And I was like, okay, I understand, but Ma, you were not living with HIV. I am living with HIV. So I need to do everything I can to protect my daughter. So much that some of the things that were used for me, Undudu, as a child, I never actually practiced them to my daughter. I never gave my daughter gripe water. I never gave my daughter, there is this root that your grandmother or your mother, they will go and dig cleanse it up, and then they will boil it, and then they will insist that you give your child this water from that particular root. I never did those things to my child because, one, I had to trust the conventional medicine to begin with. And for me, that was keeping me going because I knew I had science as a backing in raising my daughter.
It's been difficult, but both Nosi and Dudu have managed to protect their children. They have managed to keep them safe from the transmission of HIV. In fact, they see themselves as being like any other mother, protecting and caring for their children no matter the cost.
Mama ina crying sebbe. Di magan pe am crying tatilene. Okay, must cry. Huh? Tatil.
I see peretes.
Ready. Being a mother is each and every moment I spend with my children. You see, it's that same dream I had while I was growing up. So being HIV positive, it hasn't affected me that much, but it has affected only with the breastfeeding. You see, because I wished to God that I had at least a year or 2 years to breastfeed my children, but it had to be timed, you see. And that's the bad thing that HIV has done to my life, you see. I'm not able to breastfeed my children the long period I wanted to breastfeed them.
Other than the precautions that you need to take in order to protect your child from being infected, be it while you are pregnant, while you deliver, and while you are choosing which way you are going to feed your child, I don't think there's really any difference. The same instincts that a negative mother has are the same instincts that I have as Untoto that is actually living with HIV. Other than the precautions, I want to believe that we as mothers are the same across the board.
Having them was the best gift that God has given me, and I wouldn't change it for anything. They have given me the unconditional love, and I never thought that I would get the opportunity to be a mother, but I did. I love them to death, and I wish that God could give me enough time to spend with them, to see them grow and go to varsity and get married and take care of my grandchildren. They are my pride and joy. Yeah, I love them. I love my children more than anything in the world.
I would just tell her I love her more than life itself. If I were to die for her to be able to live, I will do it without even thinking twice about it.
Nosi and Dudu were both very relieved when their children tested HIV negative. However, despite this fact, both these mothers still have worries about their children's future with regards to HIV.
I think there'll come the time that I have to explain everything to them when they are all grown up and they understand the situation. But I so wish that, you see, I could just spare them that. I wish there could be a cure so that I don't have to go through that and tell the mom is HIV positive, she'll die someday sooner or later, because you can never tell. Everything could change just in a moment. So I just wish that they don't have to hear that, okay, mom is sick. I try my best to be healthy as possibly as I can.
People out there can be so cruel, ne? The moment they know who is my daughter, there is a big possibility that automatically they will assume that she is also living with HIV because I am living with HIV. As a result, my daughter will be lonely even at school. She will have nobody to play with because parents can be so cruel. When they talk to their children, they will always tell you, you're not supposed to be playing with so-and-so because their mother is living with HIV. That is something that I don't want for my child. Of course, she knows that I'm taking ARVs. I am not really sure if she knows why. But if you ask her, why does somebody have to take ARVs, she will tell you because ARVs can actually stop you from dying.
These two caring mothers have still managed to maintain a positive outlook on life, despite all the challenges that they have faced in raising their children, and they want to share their advice with other HIV-positive mothers.
You have a responsibility towards this child because, one, they really didn't ask to be born. This is a choice that you made. And you know that I always say, with every choice that you make, you need to know that there is a responsibility that is attached to it. So with that being said, whatever decision that I took, even from the initial deciding that I want to have a child, I needed to recognize that there is a responsibility that was attached to that. So the way in which I'm raising my child, of course, it did raise some eyebrows at home because I was very particular in a way in which my daughter was being fed and everything else. That is why most of the time I always preferred doing everything myself. But then again, as a working mother, you need to put your trust in other people's hands because at the end of the day, it won't help you to be always sitting around at home, you're looking after your child. At the end of the day, this child needs clothing, this child needs food, this child needs formula.
You know what? Being HIV, it doesn't have to infect your life, change your life in a way that you don't want to bond with your child. They must use being HIV positive as a weapon, to bond with their children, to give them love that the children need. So each and every moment you have with your child, just do your best to bond with your child and love them like there's no tomorrow. That's what I do with my children.
Nosia and Dudu have worked hard to give their children the life that they deserve. They have both made tough decisions regarding the children's health and safety and are still happy with the choices that they have made. And they wouldn't change a thing.
If I were given a chance to do that all over again, I would do it the exact same order. I would not change anything in the way in which I raised my daughter. Even if I were to be pregnant now, like this year, I will go the same route in formula feeding.
You see, when you see your children and you see them grow up, sometimes you just don't believe it, that, hey, these kids are growing. And it's you who brought them to this world, and it's nice and unbelievable at the same time. I just can't wait for the young one to grow up, and then I could see them playing with her sister, outside, and watching them and saying, oh, wow, yeah, they're growing up to be beautiful women.
When I took her for the PCR, the very first time that she got tested, when I actually knew that she tested negative, I couldn't contain my tears. I was crying, not because I was disappointed because my daughter was actually tested and she became negative, but because of the joy and the fact that I was like thanking myself for taking that kind of a responsibility. I felt so proud of myself in saying that I have done everything possible for me to protect this child from being infected. And at the end of the day, my daughter really tested negative for HIV. That was everything to me.